Hi guys, so in today's video we're just going to be building this from scratch. We're just going to be building this particular animation. If you try hovering a particular text, you get to see the staggering images coming up for each of every list we have here right now. And this was gotten from the award site. So we're going to be building this from scratch using Framer Motion and also Nextjs. Let's get building. Okay, what we currently have here is just a Nextjs application with Tailwind CSS installed. Let's quickly take out the boiler code as we can see on the screen right now, and we're just going to make this a React fragment and try to format this properly, and also go into our CSS, try to clean this up also. We don't need most of these classes. And okay, cool, so let's take a look at the animation one more time, what we're trying to build. So currently we just have a list of links. They are actually navigation links to different pages across in this application. We have 1 2 3 4 5 different links, and we are going to start from there. Okay, cool. So you go into our application right now. Let's quickly create a file called data, and this is just going to hold our data, and we could just call this .cs. Just going to say our data is going to be equal to, let's quickly click this up real quick. And remember, we need to export this because we'll be using it in our component directly. And let's quickly create a new component directory. Just going to call this component, and for simplicity we're just going to be using one component to achieve this particular animation, so we don't have to like move across different component, and we're just going to stick with one component and try to focus more on just one component. So yeah, I think we could just call this Avo effect, quickly rename our components. So Avo effect, our Avo effect is gonna be making use of, remember we have a data we exported in our TS file, and need to import data from data, and obviously it's an array, right? So we can map through it, and we're just gonna say we want to get each of the items. Also we want to get the index. Based on that, we're just gonna return some JSX. Let's format input here. Just gonna return some JSX that says item dot, let's just do title. Look at our screens, we have title, and let's quickly import this into our pages. We're gonna say this should be our Avo effect coming from a cool. We'll actually see each of the titles right now. Let's go back there and work on it. Okay, so let's start our item. So we're just gonna say the title is just gonna have a class name of, let's just do, okay, the title is just gonna have a class of text of 6 rems. Okay, cool. You could actually see some error here, missing key props. Okay, let's quickly take this out and add the React fragments here right now. The text of, I think let's just make this wider so we could, and we're gonna make this uppercase, and also we just want this to have a font weight of medium, which is 500. And if you remember, we also have a subtitle, so we could just put the subtitle in a p tag, and that's just gonna be item dot subtitle. Let's quickly style this too. So we're gonna say this should just have a text size of 1.6 rem, and it's gonna have a margin left of 6. It's gonna have a margin left of 6. Then margin top, let's go with 12. And this is also gonna be a font width. Also want to make this uppercase. We quickly see what we currently have now. We just have our headers, also our paragraphs. Cool. So let's quickly style this, and if you could look at the original animation, we have the header and also the paragraph on one line, and we also have this numbers, which is just going to be our index. So let's quickly do that. Let's make this wider again and quickly say each of our items. Okay, so let's add the headers. Header is just going to be an H1 that basically takes in our index. Let's format this properly and also try to style this. See, this is just going to have a text of 6 rem, also fonts. Very cool. If you take a look at the browser right now, what we currently have, you will actually see, okay, we have a look happen over here. So we have text not spelled correctly, txt. Very cool. And we need to wrap this, we need to put this in a container. I'm just gonna put on that div and put our text, right? Put our text and also our index. So what we're trying to achieve now, we're just trying to put it in one line. Let's quickly say this is just gonna be a flex. Also try to put everything in the center, and also try to have spacing across this. Let's see what we currently have. Cool. Okay, so we currently have our headers and our paragraph and this. Okay, so this is starting from 0. That shouldn't start from 0, that should start from 1 because of what we have here right now. It starts from 1 then to 5. So let's fix that real quick. So we just go down into our index, and how you do that is just, this is your index. This is the index in JavaScript starts from 0. We're just gonna say index plus 1, and we should have the starting from 1 4. Okay, and a font of medium, Amazing. So I think at this point we have our text all showing up here, and let's quickly just add comments. We'll be able to differentiate our items when we're trying to animate it. So currently this is our text container, and the next one we just want to add our images. This is just going to be our images container. If you see how the data is actually structured right now, we just have an image which is actually inside an array, and for each of all our items. Okay, so this data actually will be available for you in the GitHub repo if you decide to code along. Okay, let's go back to our component. So in this particular place, what we just do here is we're just gonna say we just need a URL for that list. We just need a URL, and we're gonna style this to say this should just have a flex, and this should just have a width of. What we're trying to do is all our images are just gonna be inside an li, which is a list. Okay, cool. So let's say li, right? And remember, we have to loop through the data. So we'll just say inside here now, we're going to say our items dot images, which is an array, can actually map through it. And to map through this, we're just going to say this is just going to give us our image URL. We're also going to ask for the index. Okay, cool. And we're just going to returning the JSX. Just going, in our own case, it's just going to be our li. And inside our li, we're going to have on that div. This div is just going to be holding our image, which is just going to be equal to the source of our image URL and some more distance have. I think this should be a key error, and our key is just going to go. And let's see what we currently have. We could add an alt for accessibility. We just call this image URL. And okay, so at this point, let's quickly see what we have. Okay, cool. So this is currently what we have. We just have some images which are actually showing at the bottom of our text currently. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different images, and they are all showing up here right now. So let's continue styling. So basically we could say this should just be a height of full, and we could just say this should just be an object of cover, and I'm gonna make the parent a relative, position to be relative, and also margin left, because as you can see there wasn't space in between the images. So we're just gonna say 4 rems be in 4 rems. Let's quickly save this and take a look again and see what we currently have. Okay, cool. So we have our images, and this is looking good, almost good. So currently we're still working on just that. Okay, right now we're still working on the layout of our animation. Let's continue that. So this is actually screaming for us to make use of image components from Nextjs directly. So let's quickly import that from Nextjs, and this okay, cool. And let's see what we currently have. Okay, it says image source is missing. Let's add a width of 100 and a height of 100. Set invalid source props. Okay, let's quickly go into and see what the error is. We just need to resolve this error. We just need to go into our next config, right? And we're just gonna define our images object. Just gonna just quickly copy this right here, and let's quickly go back. To localhost. So our images, this should just be the URL. Let's take the URL from here, because Nextjs is screaming that it doesn't know the images we're using since they are coming from an external source. Let's go into our next config, and this should be this, and this should be this. Just take out the HTTPS. It also leaves this to be an empty string, the path name. Let's quickly hit localhost 300 again. Okay, so expected a non-empty string. Okay, let's quickly just take our path name. We're not going to be defining it. Okay, and this should take you our error. Okay, cool. So we have this, and the way to actually fix this is our image is looking very small. So let's quickly fix that. So we just have a width of 500 and a height of 500, and that should give us the actual size and the kind of sizing we need for our images. Cool. So we currently have our images, and let's continue styling. Okay, so we have our images and we also have our text, and the next thing we could do here is to style our li. So this should just have a margin top of 4, which is 16 pixels, and also let's just have a width of 17.9 rems, just to give it a predefined width. This is what we currently have. We can create this like 19.9. We could have like more looking good images. Okay, this works for us. Okay, so let's go through everything we've done so far. We just took our data, mapped through it, showed the text, and also tried to render the image. As you could actually see right now, we just have the text and also have the image. Now if you go back to the animation, this image is supposed to be on top of this particular text, and we're also missing this arrow right here. Okay, let's quickly add that. Take this to the side, and let's quickly open VS Code, and we're gonna say this should have, okay, so this is our image, and right here we could also put on that container, which is just gonna be the wrapper around our arrow and also the images together. Let's quickly take this and cut this inside here, this it here. So what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to add particular arrow, as we can see, and arrow is just gonna be some regular icon. We're gonna style this to be having the text size of 6 rem. Let's take a look at what we have right now. Let's go back to this place. Okay, we have our arrow, but we need this arrow to be on the same line as our images. Okay, so for us to do that, let's just style this again. This should just be a flex, and we're gonna make this an center, and we're gonna say this should be absolute. Particular wrapper should just be absolute, and once we do that, we could actually see images on top of the text. Okay, this is looking very messy. Let's fix that. We'll go over here and say this should just be div with a class of, we're gonna set this to an height of 8 rem, and we're gonna say hide the overflow of hidden. We don't want to see any overflow on this particular container, and for now we can just say just have a cutoff point, and our key at this point is our key just be to our index. Listen, let's quickly take a look at what we currently have. We currently have our text, and we can't actually see our images at this point. And I wonder why. So let's go here and see what's happening. So adding the top of 0, we could actually see our image, and as you can see right now, we just have the images on top of each and every text we have here. Okay, so one more thing we could do here, we could just go back to our images and say this should just, let's just take this back to 17. Since we have this, we currently have our arrow, we have our images, and let's take a look at this one more time. So what we want to do here is on avward of this particular parent, we just want to show the child. So before we do that, okay, so at this point, one more fix we could just quickly do right now is just to add the custom fonts. So I'll be doing that very quickly, just to add the custom font from Nextjs directly. Just gonna go into layout right now and say custom font is just gonna come in from bringing our custom fonts into component. Our custom font is just gonna be inside our component. Also, this is our custom fonts. I'm gonna say my fonts. Okay, so let's quickly import our local font. Local font is just gonna come from font local, and we've added our fonts. Let's quickly take out this inter, which came in with the prebuilt class name. Okay, now let's quickly go back to our review and see what we currently have. So if you take a look now, for us to visualize this properly, let's go back to this part and try to take out the image. So we see that we currently have different fonts from what we previously had. Okay, cool. So we have a similar font to what is being used in this particular design. Okay, so let's just go ahead and continue what we're doing. So let's add this back, and the next thing to do right now, since we already have our images and we have our icons and everything is in place, we just need to animate and do our animation. Like I said in the beginning of this video, for our animation today, we're just going to be using Framer Motion. And to use Framer Motion, let's quickly just install Framer Motion. So we can say npm install npm I Framer Motion. Okay, we have Framer Motion installed right now, and let's quickly do it and see. So the next thing we're going to do here now, we're going to start animating this, and we're just going to use variants from Framer Motion to undo this animation. Let's just import motion from Framer Motion, and once we have that, start wrapping our divs. Okay, so we'll say this just be motion.div, just also be okay, so we're just going to be animating with variant, like I said. So let's quickly start doing that. Okay, let's quickly look at the animation one more time before seeing what we could do here. So this is what basically happens, right? So the images are on top of the text, and when you hover around the parents, the text goes to the opacity of 0, meaning that it's not visible. Then the images shows up, right? Okay, so that out of the way, let's quickly just go back here. So this is just screaming some Nextjs error. Let's quickly fix this, because every component by default is actually a server component. So let's say this should just be a use client component, and that error should go away. So let's start working on our variants. Okay, we're just gonna say our first variant here is we're just gonna call it, this should be our parent variant, and our parent variant is just gonna be equal to initial, which is just gonna be empty for now, and our animate, right, our animate value is just gonna be empty also. Okay, cool. So we could reuse this down here now for our next variant. So the next variant we want to work on is a text variant. So the text container itself. We just say this is the text container. So what actually do we want? We want this should be the opacity of 1, right? On initial, right? On initial, we're gonna be seeing the text. It's gonna be visualized. We can visualize the text on the start of that particular component. So it's gonna be on opacity of 1. One little trick we could just do here, we could just type this particular variant real quick and open this real quick, yeah, and try to import a variant from Framer Motion. Okay, already import from Framer Motion. Says, okay, so what error are we having here? It says object literal may not specify on type. Okay, so we'll just quickly say this should be opacity, and we should be able to get, okay, so we're just gonna say variant coming from variants. Let's import variant directly from here. Okay, cool. So we'll say this should just have the opacity of 1. We're gonna see this, and when we animate, we are going to show the opacity of 0. Okay, so with this now, we could quickly also copy this, and let's just reuse it down here. We're gonna say the next one we're gonna work on now is just gonna be the arrow, right? So what's happening with the arrow is this: we have the opacity of 0 on the initial. So when you animate it, right, when it shows up on the opacity of 1. And let's also do the last one for our image. So our image variant is just gonna start from the opacity of 0 to the opacity of 1. Okay, so this is just the backbone of our animation right now. We're going to come back to each and every of these variants, but let's just set this up. Firstly, we just have variance is equal to our parent variance, and we're going to say our initial is going to be what we set in our variant up there. Then on basically what we want to do here is we want to use this with on over. We want to animate when you over. Then if you go down here to our text, let's quickly make this a motion component, because we will need to use our text variant here. So we'll say motion div, and this should just take in our variant of text variant, and also our image is just gonna take in our variants. Variant is gonna be equals to image variant. Now there's one thing missing. Our arrow actually too is missing our variants. We're gonna say this should just be a variant of arrow variants. Okay, so let's quickly see how this looks in our browser. It says couldn't find a module component. Let's quickly reload this page and see. Okay, cool. Okay, so right now we don't have the image, we just have the text, and let's try overlaying this. Okay, cool. So if you try overlaying it, you see the image, which is looking good, and we are one step closer to our animation. So what's happening is when you have to the parents, the parents content, right, which is the text itself, the text variant goes to the opacity of 0. That's why we can't see the text. Instead, we just see the arrow and the images, right? Okay, and let's go back to this example again. So this example, if you see what's happening here, it's showing up the image but with a slight animation compared to what we currently have right now. So let's try to fix that next. Let's try to see how we could make these images behave in a similar fashion as what we have in our example here. Okay, so for us to do that, let's go back to VS Code, and we're going to go back to our variant right now, and we are going to be transforming our elements. We're going to be transforming our items, which is mostly the images and also the arrow, because if you look at this again, this is coming from the bottom to the top for the images, while the arrow is coming from a negative value to the current state is showing up here. So we need to be able to achieve that, and for us to do that, we're just going to use the transform 3D to animate those values. Okay, so what we just say here is for the image, we're going to transform the image. So once this animation starts, this is just going to be translate 3D, and we're just going to set it to 0 pixel, 101 pixel, then 0 pixel 2. Then once we animate to the value, we are going to say we're going to animate it to 000 pixels. Okay, and remember the arrow too has the same kind of animation coming from the left. So for the arrow, we're just going to transform the value on initial. It's just going to start from the translate 3D of -101% to just 000 pixel, which is just like the initial. Okay, so with this particular two values we just added in our arrow variant and our image variant, let's take a look and see how our animation looks now. So if you go back to localhost, let's say this. Okay, so if you hover through this, our arrow is coming from the side, a negative value. Our image is also coming from the bottom to the top because of we added the transform property, which is we're transforming it on the 3D axis, right, to 0 pixels, which is from 101 pixels. So what I basically mean is we're just taking the image from this part, and when we animate, it just comes up, right, and that gives us that animation, that feel. So if you go back here and see what they have here now, you see how it comes up from the bottom to the top. So for you to achieve similar animation, you just need to like make use of the transform property to achieve this. Okay, so if you look at our animation again, you could actually see we are one step closer to achieving this particular animation, because right now our arrow comes from the side, our images comes up, and this is looking almost perfect. So one last thing we just need to do here right now is to add the staggering effect, because if you notice, when you hover through a particular container, you see the images are actually staggering, right? They are taking some time to show up, but for our own case now, all the images are showing up simultaneously at the same time. That is not what we want. Okay, so let's go back to VS Code. Okay, so for us to actually do that, what we could just quickly do here, we could just come to our motion component, which hosts our images, which is our list. We're just gonna set a custom, which is just gonna be I, and we could quickly add it up with our items dot images dot, let's just say dot length for our images, and this I basically is just gonna represent our index. Okay, so what we're saying is we're passing a particular custom property, our motion component, and directly our variant, which is this particular variant, will be able to access that value that was passed down. So since the value was passed down, this is basically going to turn into a function that takes in our value. We're just gonna call it I, and we're gonna say this should be, okay, quickly take this out and say this should be, okay. So now you might be wondering, what are we going to use the I for? Okay, so what we're going to be using the I for the delay. So what we're trying to do is, so when you hover this particular component, when you want to animate it, we want each of these images to take slight differences to show up, or for some seconds before they show up, right, based on what we already have here. Okay, so what we do that just straightforward, right? We just pass in the custom property, we accept the property here, and we're just going to set some values here. We're just going to set our transition value. So what we're saying is it takes in the I, and we're multiplying it by 0.06 milliseconds. Then we're adding an easing of ease outs, and we could also take out this easing, and we just want this animation to last for the duration of 0.5. So if we go back to our code, which is localhost, we should be able to see this effect right now. Okay, so once you hover this, it gives you this cool sliding effect from the bottom to the top with the slide staggering effect, because we're actually delaying each and every of the image property before they show up. So if we go back here and see this, I think one thing we could do, we could also increase this image size, and let's just do, our image size should just be, let's go with 19. Let's see how that looks again. Let's refresh page, and okay, cool, 19 is over the page. Let's just make this 18 and see how that looks. Okay, cool. So this is how you actually try to build such an effect from scratch. So if you see it's almost looking identical to the original one we're trying to follow. So on over, it just shows up the images, shows up the arrow comes from the negative value, the image comes from the bottom to the top, and this is how you actually do it. So at this point, we've come to the end of this particular video. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment. I'll definitely attend to it, and also make sure you subscribe, because more videos will be dropping soon. Without wasting much time, that is the end of the video. See you in the next video.